Coming up on today's episode, details of Tesla Software 10 come out, big explosion in Russia, and Dream Chaser, a mini space shuttle, finds its ride to space. Let's get ludicrous. Hey there, and welcome to Our Ludicrous Future. This is the podcast where we talk about all the cool future stuff that's going to make today interesting so that tomorrow is totally ludicrous. Or something like that. I'm Joe Scott with the Answers with Joe YouTube channel. With me is Tim Dodd.
Hi, it's me, Tim Dodd, coming to you from Oklahoma, working my way down to see Starhopper. And with us is also Ben Solons.
What's up, guys? It's Neil deGrasse Tyson, your personal astrophysicist here today.
No, long show.
Oh, man. People are going to find out. You know, we've never been in the same place at the same time. So you may not figure that one out.
Oh, you and Neil, not us three.
Oh, we
But
have.
I've met you in person.
Have you met
not
Neil?
Neil deGrasse Tyson.
How would you know? How would you know? Deep fakes, bro. Deep fakes.
In-person deepfakes.
I also want to point out that I'm not wearing a bucket. Just for those of you watching, I'm not wearing a bucket. Okay.
But you should be.
But I should be. I could be Buckethead 2.0, the rocket science guy.
Yeah, isn't that a game that's coming to Tesla, or it already came? Buckethead or something?
That's
Cuphead.
Cuphead. Okay.
Buckethead was the guitar player for Primus.
Oh.
Wasn't he in Guns N' Roses for a while, or some version of Guns N' Roses? He played with
Guns
Axl
N'
Rose.
I was going to say Guns N' Roses.
That's where I heard about him.
Really?
He was in Primus?
Yeah.
Like Slingshots and Daisies?
I think he was only in Primus, unless we might find out some stuff. People are probably screaming like,
I know,
Buckethead! Of course. This is one of
Either
those
way,
things that
you are
people-
not Buckethead.
Yeah, I'm not. That
But
was the
you
point.
are on the road somewhere.
Yeah, I am on the road somewhere. Basically, yeah, I'm working my way down to see Starhopper again, which I may have just got word that it's rescheduled, the hop scheduled to next week instead of tomorrow. So my perfectly timed road trip that was like really just going to get there right perfectly on time. So the trouble is now, like, do I turn around? I'm 12 hours from home. So by the time, like, if I get home, I'd get home late Thursday night, and then I'd have to leave again, like, Monday morning, probably, or something, Monday or Tuesday.
Yeah, it's still a weekend. I would do it.
It's true.
Yeah.
It's true.
I mean,
Do
your
some
car.
vagabonding.
Yeah.
Do what?
Do some vagabonding. Just go where the road takes you.
I was debating to see vagabonding a bit. Drive around Oklahoma? I don't know. Maybe hang out.
Yeah, there's not a whole lot between here and there.
Maybe hang out with Joe in Texas. I think I'm probably only 2 hours from you, Joe.
Yeah, probably.
He said it was really hot, though. I wouldn't.
I'm sure it's pretty bad where you are, too.
Probably. I don't know. I'll be in the car all day, so
Well,
it doesn't matter.
Tim's like, I haven't left the hotel today, so I don't know.
How was it driving, though? Would you use the autopilot, navigate in autopilot, all that stuff? Or
I always do, but actually, the most recent update that I have, the one that has like the chess and the like slight updates, autopilot is much worse.
I've seen
ping-ponging again, and it hasn't ping-ponged, I don't think, since like week 1 of me owning the car.
Wow.
And then what else? It's doing like a few just random things, and it's actually in a really weird state where I'm like, I really hope this gets updated quickly, because the last like 2 on the way down to Boca Chica last time, autopilot was unbelievable. Like, I trusted it so much. Even like construction cones, not even like construction lines, it would do so smoothly. Just I'd keep my hands like, oh, but it did all that stuff, and I've had like 10 disengagements on this trip alone, where I'm like, it's not going to do anything, or it's like crossing getting way too close to the line and stuff. I don't know what they did on this update, but it is not good.
Machine learning, man. It's not a linear progression,
Right.
You
It's
change
not always
one.
like an improvement, yeah.
Yeah, well, it's like there's so many variables, right? It's a bit of chaos theory, especially because I assume they used a deep learning system. So, you'd basically have many layers of algorithms processing different decision points on what's happening. That's kind of the definition between, of deep learning. And so if you change one of those things, it could later change how something else works. So it's not just 100%, oh, we fixed that, it's better, right? You kind of don't know how it's always going to behave. So, but you should be able to test all that. They should they should know, they should be able to like roll this out in even the simulations and stuff, or rolling back through history is kind of how it works, is kind of training the data.
And it's doing that thing that you always complain about, Ben, which is the phantom braking.
Yeah.
It's done that like 5 times. I asked Elon this once on Twitter, and I still do not understand why. The problem with phantom braking is lots of times you don't have any kind of disengagement event. There's no input that I can give it to tell it, besides like mashing the gas pedal, and I don't think it even would register that because it didn't like disengage, So I don't know. There's no input for me to tell it bad car.
You take it literally, grab the steering wheel and turn it to where it disengages. That would be a signal to them.
That's a horrible way for me to have to tell it that it did something wrong. Swerving the car physically because it panic braked is a really bad idea. Why isn't there a thing on the screen that, if that a little like, even like a little red button on the screen that I click and it says like learn, And I click it when it does something wrong, because that way I'm training it. I do not understand why they're so like, you're training it, and anytime you have to engage. Like, sometimes there are things that you don't engage, though, that it's not going to learn.
You like, it wasn't bad enough to disengage, but it was still bad.
It was bad. Or like jerky acceleration things, where I'm like, no, don't. Bad car. Like, I want that button, and I can't believe they're being stubborn about that. Like, or opt in for that at least, for sure. Give that like a...
Yeah. What about you, Joe? Have you seen any of that recently?
In the autopilot? Yeah. I really don't use autopilot that much because most of my driving is like nearby. I don't really get on highways very much. I have not seen that, but I don't use it nearly as much as Tim does.
Yeah, I just did, my latest video had a demo of navigating on autopilot, and it actually worked fairly well. I was surprised. I was doing it to show a point of like, look at how much the cars can do now, and just imagine, 10 years from now. But yeah, it for me has never been super like stellar. It's always been a bit sketchy. It seems lately in the Model 3 that it's really trying to predict when someone will cut in front of you, and that's where that braking comes in. It doesn't feel like, I've had flat out phantom braking where it like slams on the brakes, and you like lurch forward because it thought the overpass bridge was a wall or something. Right. But lately it's not. I haven't seen as much of that as more as just this like hesitation, this like little bit of, oh my god, and it's just like speeding up, slowing down like constantly. Which just makes me even happier that I have Autopilot 1 in the car I drive every day, because it doesn't care. It's the honey badger of Autopilot. Like, oh, you're gonna cut in front of me? I'm just gonna ram you.
So this is probably a dumb question, but I'm too. I don't want to mess up my car, so I've never actually tried this. But like, does it have auto braking if you're not in autopilot and you're just maybe coasting, idling towards something? Will it just stop?
Yes, and I found that out yesterday.
Okay.
Oh,
by accident.
Was it the rollaway or the emergency braking?
It was full-blown emergency braking. I was like reading a sign, and I didn't realize the car stopped in front of me really fast, and so it full-blown just
really
prevented me from rear-ending that guy.
Yeah. So there's two systems. There's that automatic emergency braking, which below, I think 25 miles per hour is really good. Above that, it will help, but it's not going to be guaranteed if you're going 70 miles an hour.
Yeah, I was going like 4,
Yeah, right. If you're going slow, I think below a certain, might even be lower than 25. I forget what it is. Then it will do that. And NHTSA tests that and stuff, so you can actually look up the data on it. But the other one that I actually really like is the forward collision warning. I set that to early, and that's, I've had, I don't know, several occasions in the past month or so where, like, I'm driving through a stop sign looking for, Starbucks or wherever I'm going. I'm trying to see, okay, what corner is it on? Not looking at my phone, but I'm distracted still. And the row of cars in front of me across the intersection, somebody's turning right, and then the whole row of cars stopped. I'm not stopping, but it gives me enough warning. It's 90, 100 feet out still. It's like an entire intersection away, and so I do the braking, but it gives me that warning. So that to me is an awesome feature, and a lot of cars have that. That's not really unique to Tesla at all.
Yeah.
But if you go into that autopilot section, I think it is in the settings, there's a list of like 7 or 8 features that are not autopilot related, like the automatic lane keep and all that. In fact, that leads us into some updates that are going to be coming to us with version 10. So we can kind of jump into those now. Yeah,
let's talk about that. That's coming out. First off, when is this is one of those like soon things, right?
Yeah,
like,
Tesla and soon. I'm just gonna opt out of that question.
Yeah.
Sure. As soon as next month. Okay.
Right.
One of the things that, in fact, I'll just jump right to that one there, Joe. You were asking about Elon called it Joe mode.
Yeah.
Which I thought was kind of awesome. I'm kind of jealous. I don't have like a Teslanomics mode or something.
You named it after Joe.
Yeah.
I wish it was something cooler. Joe mode, yes. Oh, it makes the beeps quieter. Oh.
Yeah. Like it can fly now. So Steven asked Elon a question here. He said, can we get the auto lane correction feature without sound? Young kids in the car want to keep the feature on but not wake them up. And Elon responded, hoping to get Joe mode in quotes, which does that mean if you put something in quotes, does that make it ironic? Is that what that means? Anyways.
No.
That's not what that means? Okay.
I think it just means that's what it's actually going to be called, Joe mode.
Okay. The default, this is continuing from Elon's response, the default, of course, is normal volume, but selecting Joe mode would lower the volume of strident beeps and chimes by half. And I can tell you, as someone with a small child that sleeps in the car, I will be a huge fan of this. What I've actually done, because I don't know about these auto lane correction ones, like I don't really ever get those. The one I get are the parking sensor ones where I'm pulling into my driveway and it's just beep, 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 beep.
Oh my
beep,
God,
beep.
yeah.
Yeah, and so with my son sleeping in the back, it's super annoying. Like I'm going 2 miles per hour in my driveway. Like I don't really need the parking sensors here,
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I'm looking forward to that. I think that'll be a cool feature. What do you guys think? Is it something you're looking forward to?
Not at all.
I
don't care.
Think so.
Why can't Joe mode be like beast mode? Like something really.
Or like
Instead it's
coffee
like,
comes out of the
quiet.
sun visor or something.
Ooh, I'll go for that.
Well, I was actually imagining there used to be this website. Maybe it's out there called a Coffeetivity. Have you guys heard of this? And it's a website that just plays coffee shop background sounds, like people talking and like a little espresso machine going, and it just kind of makes it sound like you're in a coffee shop. And they had this whole idea of like it would make you more productive, so they call it Coffeetivity or something. Anyways, I think that'd be cool, like romance mode, but instead of like a barista pops up or something. Yeah.
And you get that random shh.
Right. Everyone listening right now was like, oh God.
And then you got the homeless guy walking in and.
Why isn't this free? I used to pay taxes. So another one in version 10 here that is coming, I'm doing quotes as ironic in this case soon, is that Tesla will be able to read text messages from the phone, read them aloud. So this is actually a really cool feature, and I think I don't have an Apple phone, but does Apple's driving mode have this where it'll read the text to you, or you can select that? Is that a thing?
I don't.
It's like an accessibility feature, I think.
Yeah. Do you guys have the driving thing where it'll detect when you're driving and go into like a separate mode that won't let you mess with it?
No, I don't think so.
I don't think I've ever done that. No.
See, how do I know that this exists? Like, I had an iPhone for a week once, and I was like, "Oh, this is awesome." But anyway, so and on Android you have a thing too called I think it's Android Auto does it. But essentially, when you get a text right now, your only option if you want to consume that information is to actually pick up your phone and read it. Whereas a lot of cars, a lot of apps like this will read it to you through the speaker system. So it sounds like that's going to be coming, and allow responses with voice commands and all that. So I think that's a big one. I kind of, when I read this, I'm like, who actually text messages that much anymore? But anyways, hopefully it'll work with, things like WhatsApp and Facebook Messenger and everything else. So I think that's a cool feature. Do you guys think you use that much?
Maybe a little.
Yeah.
I mean, there's times where I would definitely like that. Yeah. Like around town. Cause when I'm like on road trips, I just basically put my phone in do not disturb anyway. Just ignore it for the full day, but around town, if I'm going between point A and point B, I think it'd be nice to have it be able to just read a text message to me for sure. Because I've seen, like CarPlay does that, Apple CarPlay or Android Auto or whatever. They already, they do that stuff really well. So I would,
yeah, it's pretty straightforward. Now I hope when they do that, they also allow you to trigger the voice assistant from the steering wheel. If I could trigger for me Google Assistant or for you guys Siri and then tell it to do things, I think that would be awesome.
Well, I never want to use Siri because Siri is terrible.
Okay, well, see, Google Assistant's awesome, so so I want that. But just the ability to trigger it, because I think it's a super common thing, whatever platform you use, that these things obviously exist, and it would be just a nice way to do that. And so you can still get a lot of the functionality of your phone without having to actually look at it, without having to touch it and all that. Because as I pointed out in a recent video, the actual using of the phone isn't there. There are conflicting studies on whether or not that's really bad. But taking your eyes off the road is where it gets really dangerous. So it's not even the fact that you're using your phone. It could be you're looking down because you spilled coffee, or you have a screaming kid and you turned around. Like it doesn't, like, we've been distracted in driving forever. This is nothing new. But if you can make it to where you don't have to take your eyes off the road, then using those features like texting people or saying, hey, play this music, or whatever, that would be definitely an improvement for safety. So that's a big win. Speaking of playing music, it also sounds like Spotify is coming to Teslas in the US.
That's huge.
Everyone in Europe right now is like, sticking up their nose at us, going, ha ha ha, yes, I know, you guys have it. I even talked to my friend Saul, who's in Paris, like, could I buy a Tesla in Europe and ship it to America? And he's like, that would be a terrible idea. You'd basically pay double because you'd have to import it, blah blah blah. So,
and just to avoid like turning it on your phone initially.
What do you mean?
like you can use Spotify in your car. You can listen to Spotify in your car. It's just that you're choosing the song on your phone.
Yeah.
As opposed to,
for me, it doesn't. Yeah, I mean, so it'll help keep your attention off your phone. I personally I have a hard time with all that.
Is it really that much less distracting to scroll through Spotify and search on Spotify when you're using a giant tablet in your car versus scrolling through Spotify on your phone? Like, is that really?
I suppose it would depend where you're holding your phone.
I mean, it might be less distracting if you pick up your phone, put it in front of your face, and you're more familiar with your phone. You can quickly type,
or
do that kind of stuff versus like having to try to do that on a big giant screen. I don't know if that's actually safer.
Fair point. But what about the voice controls? If that was just automatically went to Spotify?
Well, that'd be nice.
Right.
Yeah, that'd be great.
I also have all these playlists in Spotify that I would be able to pull up instead of having to reach into my phone.
Also, Slacker Radio's like radio features are terrible. So, like, literally, I put on Paco de Lucia, who is arguably one of the greatest, definitely like the greatest flamenco guitarist ever. 2 songs later, I'm listening to Katy Perry. So I went from like classical Spanish flamenco to what? Like, how did you get there?
That's how Spotify actually used to do that with me. With like, no matter what I was listening to, within 3 songs that end up on like
pop music.
It was the same. Regina Spektor. No matter what, within 3 or 4 songs, Regina Spektor. I'm like, I'm listening to hardcore metal right now.
Yeah.
How did you end up at Regina Spektor?
Yeah.
You know, like.
Well, and we could talk a little bit about this. So anyway, so Elon actually responded saying, yes, it's coming for Spotify. So, great news. But I think that the bigger thing, so there's two things I want to say here. One, I really would hate if they're like, cool, Slacker's out, Spotify's in. Like that would, to me, be on their part a wasted effort, because why couldn't you just open up a freaking app store so where we could choose what we want? What if, because like you said, like I love Spotify for the freedom and the specificity, like the ability to choose exactly what I want. But Pandora clearly has the best like recommendation algorithm. And so in terms of like a radio, I don't care. Just play something like this. Pandora is the winner. Spotify is pretty bad at that, with the exception of those curated playlists, which they actually do some data processing on, not like the random on-the-fly ones, which, Tim, as you just pointed out, are pretty bad. So I think, what they really should be doing is opening up multiple options here. Because, yeah, Spotify is super popular and kind of the hot thing now, but, who knows? I mean, MySpace was massive, and then all of a sudden it was gone. Facebook's massive now. Tomorrow it could be gone. Like these things change over time, so you shouldn't just like hard code a solution. You should have like a framework and a way for other companies to jump in here, because who knows? Maybe there's someone that's going to be way better than Spotify, right around the corner. We just don't know it yet.
Yep. It's true. I agree with that.
Well, maybe this is a step to get there.
Yeah. So, speaking of getting there.
Well, there's still more stuff on version 10.
Those are the kind of recent things. Yeah, is there more features?
It'd be fun to do kind of a summary, because I still think one of the biggest ones is being able to watch YouTube or Netflix in the car is definitely going to be...
At superchargers.
When stopped in parks. But even... I know it's really dumb, but like even if you're just like sitting there waiting to pick someone up, or something, and you're just like in your car for 10 minutes... Just being able to pull up, YouTube then and watch a video quick would be amazing. But I would love that.
YouTube is great, because I know I pull up YouTube on my phone while sitting at a supercharger.
Yeah.
Because one good 15-20 minute video, you're ready to go. Know.
Exactly.
So just to be able to pull that up on your car and have the car audio and everything. I mean,
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep, yeah, I don't know about Netflix.
I just want more views. That's all I'm saying.
I don't know about Netflix as much. That seems a little bit beyond, but that's cool.
I'd watch an episode of The Office while charging. That's like also about the right amount of time.
That's a pretty good one.
Yeah. One of the challenges too would be actually streaming those things, just because of the bandwidth. You know what I mean?
I'd be very surprised if they don't start putting dedicated Wi-Fi that isn't Ben Solon's hacker Wi-Fi.
See, everyone's making fun of me, but look, now it's coming. There you go.
Is it? I just said that'd be a good solution.
No, I bet you it will be. I mean, they have electricity there. It's not hard, but it's something that's
cheaper for them to provide that kind of data than to try to be paying, having all this mobile data on all these cars streaming.
Well, I believe that when that stuff came out about streaming YouTube and stuff in your car, it said you would have to be on Wi-Fi.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think that was one of the requirements. Yeah, is there more to it? I haven't been following. I just remember the V10 stuff from like ages ago when they talked about it, but
I haven't been following.
Dude, it's too much. Yeah, it's like, okay, what are the latest things? Okay, I got that. Like what did he say 3 years ago about this? Like, yeah, who remembers?
Also, hopefully, we'll see advanced summon in version 10.
Yeah,
more publicly.
Well, okay. Interesting about that. So I think Elon had some comments about that recently too, saying it's basically not going to happen, right? Or it's not good enough yet.
He said it's not coming out until it's good enough.
Right.
Until it doesn't suck even, is what he said.
Yeah.
It's funny that he just said, like, it sucks.
It does, yeah. And one of the funny things about it, a friend of mine, who will go unnamed, actually got hit up by the Tesla AI team to come work on that feature. So it's definitely not done. If they're still looking to hire people to come help with it.
The one thing that I'm worried about with the whole system is it relies on like pretty like not wide angle cameras and stuff, like, and trying to use those to detect curbs and things. I'm just surprised it didn't do like more stereoscopic cameras. Wouldn't
it use all of them?
Would help. it does use all of them. But even like, you know, if you're like, even if you're going forward, the closest camera moving forward that won't be able to tell like what's directly under the bumper is up at the, you know, at the rear view mirror.
But
I can't believe there's not.
You got the
like
ultrasonic sensors though for the super close range stuff, right? That's your parking sensors essentially.
But I still don't know why in the very front of the bumper there isn't, you know, a camera looking down kind of, and even cameras looking out like left and right on the front of the bumper so that it can see beyond what a human in the cockpit can see, you know?
Yeah.
It just sort of shocks me that they didn't. Why didn't they just put the cameras there? But you know, in these situations like this, I feel like that'd probably help a lot. Or they could do what Roomba does and just put big giant bumpers on it that when you bump into something, it just goes, okay,
oops,
and turns around.
That's how advanced someone's going to work. It's just going to like bump into cars and turn a little bit each time until it gets there.
It's not a bad idea.
Like, I actually one time, it doesn't work anymore, but I used to have a Roomba and it got stuck under a stool. Mm-hmm. It just kept going like in a circle right there. And I recorded it and played it in fast motion and put yakety sax under it. It was one of the most artistic things I've ever done.
All those years of film school. There they are. There they are. That's what it comes down to.
And watching Benny Hill.
Oh, man.
And what else is there anything else rumored to be coming in version 10? I assume we'll get some small like autopilot tweaks again, you know, because it seems like that's normally like a bigger rollout of their overall, you know. Yeah,
well, the stoplight stuff, right? Detecting stoplights.
Ooh, that would be so awesome.
Yeah. I think there's a lot of those little features, but who really knows what's going to make it? You know, there's kind of, in software development, there's a couple different approaches. You know, one is the more what we'd call the agile software development methodology, where you'd actually like, hey, we're going to push the update on this date. All the features that are available and ready, go. Those that aren't available and ready, don't go. Or there's the way of like you're promising to customers, here are the features we're going to ship. And even though like maybe Enhanced Summon is ready today, the other, you know, stoplight detection takes another year. So your whole release gets pushed back by a year. So it seems like there are more on the agile method. Obviously, it's the modern way of doing software development. So I think that would make sense, which is why we get regular updates. And then like randomly you get one with like a big thing and you're like, whoa. You know, how come I just got that one random thing? Version 10 is like a whole new, like, you know, imagine, I don't know what the Mac ones are. What is it, like Snow Leopard to Mountain Lion or something like that? Right. But it's like a major jump, so with a ton of new things. But I mean, look at what's happening with autopilot as you already described. Like it's tough, man. This is not easy stuff. This is not a new color of a button on a web page, right? This is like, this is pretty good stuff. So,
yeah, I don't know. You know, why don't they just update it more often?
Yeah, well, there are other interesting ways to modify these things that aren't, you know, controlled by Tesla, such as you know, implanting the key card in your arm.
Yeah, what?
Didn't see that one coming. Yeah, so Tesla Model 3 key card, right? Well, Amy Double D, which that's how her name is said. That's how she lists it. I'm not doing that to be sexist or whatever. Did this, and what she did, she's kind of like one of these folks that are into the cyborg type thing. I don't know. This isn't biohacking, right? This is like the, you know,
transhuman.
Transhuman, is that what it is? Like
that might be a bridge too far to say that one.
Yeah, I forget what it is, but she did a thing where she actually melted down the key card, which my buddy Zach Jerry Rig Everything did recently, and she got the actual RFID chip from the card itself and implanted it in her arm.
Weird.
Yeah, and I'm not going to show the part with the blood, but basically the way this works, and there's two approaches here, right? So inside of this key card is an RFID chip, and you can see it, and this little wire. And what happens is, and someone will correct me if I'm wrong, please. I know I didn't need to ask for that, but when It's passive. There's no power to this card, right? It's literally just that little chip. But the way that wire works is it creates sort of like this magnetic field, and when you get it close enough to the car, which is powered, it sends basically its signal or its ID, and that decrypts the information on the chip and then unlocks the car. So it's a really cool passive way, and this is nothing new. This is how, like, if you work in an office, you have your little badge, you beep into rooms in the building and stuff. But you can take it out of there. Now, if Tesla would let you, you could actually, like, if they would decrypt that key for you, there are many other devices and things you could just put that information on, and you wouldn't have to, melt down the card and implant it in your skin.
But like your phone or your watch, your smartwatch or smartphone.
Right, yeah. So you know how Apple Pay and Android Pay and those things work? It's essentially like that. Like in theory, if Tesla would let you, if they decrypted the signal, then you could load your Tesla key card onto your phone and just tap with that. It's essentially the same idea. Now, because they won't do that, because, encryption, security, despite them not seemingly caring much about security, considering there's no multi-factor authentication, the only other option is to physically remove it from the key card and then do something else. Like, I thought about the same concept, but making an actual ring out of it and like wearing a ring that had it. I think there's many applications of this, but she, being the biohacker or whatever the right term is, somebody please tell me what the right name is. She actually implanted it in her arm and then is able to drive her car with it. Now, in the video here, it didn't. Oh, look, she has the old Snapchat goggles or whatever. In the video here, she didn't demo it working. And on Twitter, she responded about that and said, because she was at DEF CON, which is that like a Comic Con, or is this the hacker? Yeah, this is the hacker one.
That's the hacker con, yeah.
Yeah. So she was at DEF CON, and her arm was swollen, and she has a photo of it here. And apparently these kind of things, yeah, so she already has, I think, another one of these in her hand, but apparently it takes a while for the swelling and blood and everything to go down before you're able to use it. So, hopefully in the future we'll have, a video of it working. But, I mean, I don't know. What do you guys think? Joe was talking about Neuralink, implanting stuff. I mean, this is like right along those lines.
Yeah, I mean, my phone works like all the time for me, so why would I need this?
So here's what I'm thinking. When I hear about somebody putting a chip in their arm, the thing that I always get whenever I'm talking to people about the fact that you can open the car with Bluetooth on your phone, and you could call them detractors or naysayers, and maybe just people that don't know, but I always get then if somebody wants to break into your car, all they have to do is take your phone. And I'm always like, you mean like a key? Like every other car in the world, you could take their key and get in the car?
Yeah. All someone has to do is steal your key.
Yeah. So the first thing I thought of, somebody implanted it in their arm, somebody's going to be like, all they have to do is cut off your arm.
Yeah.
And they'll be able to get in your car.
Right.
Yep.
Good point. I mean,
dumbest idea I've ever heard.
I actually did a video on stealing a Tesla, so there's actually even easier ways to do it. I hope you guys all have very secure
let's put that out there.
Username and passwords. Yeah, it's funny. So here's a tip, though, something a friend of mine, Troy Hunt, who actually made the website Have I Been Owned, which if you guys aren't on that, you should check that out. It's basically monitoring. Like, there was a recent Canva hack. I don't know how people say it. I say it Canva. It's Canva. It's like this, for making thumbnails and Instagram posts and stuff. 132 million usernames and passwords leaked. And I got an email from them saying, "Oh, hey, you had them. You were in this list, so you were a part of the leak." So, what I've learned to do now is every single site, service, thing I log into, I use a unique username as well as password. So that's kind of a new thing, yeah. So imagine if you're logging into, Twitter, it could be like, Twitter at myurl.com or something like that. So I'd create a separate email address username for every single thing I use. That way, even if someone knew my email, they wouldn't know that.
Of all that?
So you can set up your email aliasing on however you have your email hosted, whether it's Gmail or whatever, to basically accept anything. So I have like a separate domain that is specifically designed for logins to things, and that domain you can put, Answers with Joe at that domain, and it would actually send an email, and I would receive it. So I don't have to actually go create new emails. When I log into a service, I just create it on the fly. And then from then on, my password manager, I use LastPass. This isn't a sponsored post, but should be. I use them to do that, and it just manages it for me. So I don't even know my logins to like 90% of the things. They're all just in LastPass. So yeah,
wow,
definitely like be aware because people can steal your stuff. They can cut off your arm or just know your username and password.
So true. Well, not recommended.
Yeah. But what
put that on the not recommended list.
But speaking of what is recommended,
I don't know. What is recommended?
Buying a Tesla Model 3 in South Korea.
These are so bad.
So
that's the worst segue I've ever.
Do you guys ever watch Linus Tech Tips?
Yeah.
I love him, and that's how all of his sponsored things are. He's like, and Intel just made a horrible mistake with this. Speaking of not making mistakes, our sponsor for today.
By the way, that is a spot on impression.
Thank you.
What you just did, that sounded exactly like him. That was really good.
Kindred spirits. He's one of the. I mean, there's a lot of tech YouTubers out there. I'm friends with a lot of them. I like a lot of them. But I feel like me and him are like kindred spirits here, because he seems to be like an old tech guy that was building computers when he was a kid, and that was me. So, anyways, but tech is very consumer friendly now. It didn't used to be. So,
all these noobs.
Yeah. Well, you got to start somewhere. So Tesla. South Korea, to be clear, to start deliveries of the Model 3 in Q4. This is from my buddy Vincent on Twitter, and it was a Reuters post here about this, so that's cool. If you guys are in South Korea, shout out to you guys. And with that, there are some photos here of a Tesla store at the mall, and people are just like... It's like everyone else in the world when the Tesla stores first opened. Just lines, as far as the eye can see, in the entire mall, waiting to go check it out. So the thing about that is that there are some incentives there that get the price of the Tesla Model 3 Standard Range Plus below $27,000 US, like the equivalent of $27,000. So I would, now that's still a lot of money. Right, it's not like they're far cheaper cars. So in terms of transportation costs, this isn't like thing. But dollar for dollar, I would be shocked if anyone could make a compelling argument that you get a better value than that right there.
Oh, there's no way.
Right.
There's no way.
Even just
you will not find an electric car with that kind of range for that kind of money. Any car with those kind of features.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah, any car.
Like, period.
Like, you're never going to find a car for a better value than that right there. That being said, it's still a lot of money to a lot of people. So, I wouldn't recommend buying it if someone is really, strapped for cash or whatever, or it's just not right for them. But if you're in that range of cost, I mean, that's, like if you're
Especially a small country like South Korea, you can drive the whole thing pretty much on one charge. Like, you're not going to need a car with, 1,000-kilometer range, because you can drive from across the entire country in a couple superchargers, really, probably.
And then before you cross the border north, you have to make sure you charge fully, otherwise you won't make it to the next. That's how it works, right?
Well, speaking of
that's
charging,
the danger of going into North Korea.
Yeah, it's range anxiety.
There you go.
Just anxiety.
That's the side effect. Speaking of charging and range anxiety, we did have a Why Don't They Just this week.
Yeah.
From Seth Kurkowski, who is
What's up,
in
Seth?
our Ludicrous Lounge. How's it going, Seth? Seth's listening to us right now.
Yo.
So Seth had a good question about charging. And he said, why don't they just put a second charge point on Teslas and each plug charges a different half of the battery. Like how semis have 2 gas tanks and fill points like on each side. There's, when a diesel truck pulls in, semi pulls in, they will charge using 2 separate hoses and 2 separate things. Why don't they just do that? I think we've talked about this like a little bit, but why don't they just do that? Let's start with Joe on this one.
Don't they do that with a semi? Wasn't that part of because the semi, they were going to do mega chargers for that, but since it wasn't ready yet, they had them plugged into 4 or 5 different superchargers at a time. Am I
think they
crazy?
They definitely were doing that. I think on a road trip.
Yeah, I think it's like a prototype kind of thing.
Yeah. Which I don't know.
So I mean, obviously, it would require you to redo the battery and require a different architecture in the car and whatnot. But I guess I would imagine they're just kind of focusing on just getting the charging faster with V3 and whatnot. But that would be my assumption. Just to keep it easy.
I think my assumption is kind of the same thing. Like the cost incurred to having a second charging port, and even all of their chargers have to have now double. If you pull into a station and you have to plug in 2 of them, you're now making more costs there. It just seems like I don't think it would quite double your speed though either. I think at best, charging 2 small batteries, if it was quarantined in half versus charging 1 battery, I don't know if it'd exactly double or how that works. But I just don't know if it'd be. I think you're right. I think the semi will likely probably have to use something like that. But
so clarify the why don't they just for me? Let me read it one more time. Why don't they just put a second charge?
Put a second charger where you can plug in have 2 chargers plugged into 1 Tesla basically. 2 chargers, 1 Tesla.
That's what I wanted to call that video that I made, but no. Something so if you guys are watching, you'll see that Tesla actually had kind of a design like this in the past. It's not for what you think, but that's I think this is how it would actually shake out, where you had multiple, you wouldn't have them on 2 sides of the car, you just have them right next to each other. But you're both kind of right. So the model. Okay, so there's when you talk about charging, there's 2 things to think about here. There's DC charging and AC charging. So DC charging is supercharging. Now, that is generally limited by heat, because what happens is the cells in the pack can't get too hot too quick. Otherwise, it screws it up and it creates that I think it's a silica oxide buildup in between the anode and the cathode. So that's essentially how you have
crystal
range
buildup.
Yeah. And so you essentially have range loss, and a lot of that comes from heat, essentially from it getting too hot too quick, etc. So if you want to maintain battery health, you can't do that. So you have to cool it down and charge it at a pace that's actually it can handle. So the fact that they can ever even go above 100 kilowatts in terms of speed is insane. They're doing some magical things to even get that, because typically you wouldn't be able to charge above the battery pack rating. So if you had a 90 kilowatt hour pack, you wouldn't be able to go above 90 kilowatts. But they're obviously smarter than that, and they figured it out. So having 2 separate chargers wouldn't necessarily alleviate that same problem. You still have the same issue, right? But maybe potentially you could. So I guess my point in DC charging, it's not necessarily about putting more voltage in, because you need to cool it down the same way. But let's assume you could do that. In theory, if that did work, you would be able to charge faster, because if for whatever reason the cooling systems were separate and you could keep them, essentially you could charge them even faster. But it's almost at the point where DC charging, it doesn't matter. If you can get 1,000 miles of range in 1 hour, what's the point, right? So DC charging, I would pretty much just say forget about it. Like it's as fast as it needs to be. We're good. Now AC charging, like at your house, is a different story, because the limitation there, eventually it would be heat. It's not heat right now. It's the actual charger itself, which is built into the car. So the thing you put in the wall charger or the mobile connector, is not actually the charger. That's just basically a switch, and it's for safety. So the charger itself that converts the AC electricity coming in into DC electricity, which is what the battery wants. That is where the limitation is. Now, the old Model S's and I think Model X's as well, actually, there was an option where you could buy a car that had dual chargers. So you actually used to be able to sort of do this. And so sometimes if you're traveling, like I was up in Ojai last year at a Tesla destination, and they had a wall charger that had 100 amps. So meaning like those things, the actual units are totally capable of pushing out more power. It's the car that can't handle it because it has to do that conversion. And so the older Model S's and Model X's during this period of time, they had that option to be able to charge up to 100 amps. I think it was somewhere around 80, 88 or something. I forget exactly what it was. It wasn't 100. I don't think anyone ever got that. So you don't necessarily need multiple charge ports to get double the power. You need 2 charging units in the car. Tesla used to do that. They stopped, and the Model 3 has never had that. So yes and no.
Okay, well.
Was that too technical? Was that make sense? I think it was a great question.
I followed about 70% of that, but okay.
Yeah.
I heard the words.
It comes down to heat. So thanks for the question, Seth.
Yeah, good question. Joe, what were you had something talking about heat.
Ooh.
That's one way of putting it, I guess. So a lot of people probably already heard about this, but there was a bit of an explosion. I don't know why I went British with that voice, but in Russia last week, actually a week today, I believe. They have a nuclear powered cruise missile that did not perform correctly on their test range, and it crashed, killed 5 scientists. Sadly.
Ooh, I didn't know that.
It was a big deal. I think 3 others were injured. Being that it's nuclear powered, obviously it's spewing some radioactivity into the air. I think some of it got picked up. Okay, right here it says readings for gamma radiation at 6 testing stations in I cannot pronounce this name, Severodvinsk. Let's just go with that. Yeah. 180,000 people live there. It said it ranged from 4 to 16 times the normal rate of 0.11 microsieverts per hour. So it's not good. It's not. What is it? Not terrible. Not great.
Yeah, I mean that's the radiation levels aren't probably enough to really do much besides taking an iodine tablet or whatever.
Right. Yeah, and they were saying the iodine's like the shelves are running dry at stores because people are buying up iodine for that. But some of the reports were saying that in Finland they're picking up some extra radiation there. It's probably being blown a bit out of proportion in the media because that's how the media sells their stuff, of course. But some people are calling it Chernobyl 2. Yeah, anything nuclear, they got to say that. What I thought was interesting, we will talk about this later, I'm sure, but I'm working on my next video and something that I stumbled across that I'd never heard of before. And Tim, we talked about this just a little bit before we started recording, but nuclear thermal propulsion, right? Yeah, nuclear thermal propulsion is this new, somewhat tested but not fully tested type of propulsion that could get us into deep space a lot faster. But that was something I'd never heard of, and then I find out about this, and it's a nuclear-powered cruise missile. So I started looking into, how does that work? And I still haven't figured it out yet.
Well, so let me correct you in saying it's definitely not new. And it's been very tested.
Well, 40 years ago or so.
In the 60s, yeah.
Yeah.
So in the 60s, we had even ideas for potential upgrades to the Saturn V even.
Right.
Or for sure for, getting to Mars, there was the NERVA program. And
right, that was von Braun.
Yep. They had, I think, 1,000 minutes or something of test time on this engine. The engine was running perfectly well. It was a really viable solution. And the crazy thing is you only have to take a fuel. You don't have to take an oxidizer with you on that stage. So if you have a stage with a nuclear engine, you can essentially use, take a lot more propellant, and you don't need an oxidizer at all. All it does is you take hydrogen, you pass it through this nuclear reactor, which will heat it up so much and just spew it out the back at crazy high speeds. and it's extremely efficient, like over to almost 3 times more efficient than like a more traditional chemical
rocket.
Chemical rocket. So it's a really good way to get into deep space. But I had heard of like a nuclear cruise missile, but I have no idea how that works.
Yeah, well, I want to make clear this is not the same thing, but it kind of like it was a weird connection that I made in my head because I'd just been reading about that. But yeah, I wish I had more time to look at this so I could kind of like explain it a little more because I don't fully understand it. But it was a type of warhead that's called the I do not know Russian words. Burevestnik, which the NATO reporting name is Skyfall, which is kind of got a little Bondish. Dun-dun. Anyway, so long story short, there's been this explosion in Russia. People were killed. Not a good thing. It's probably being over dramatized in a lot of the newspapers and stuff, but our thoughts go out to the people that were involved with that. That sucks.
Yeah, that does suck. But nuclear, I really do think like nuclear thermal propulsion is awesome.
Yeah,
and
I'm definitely gonna have to do a video about it now that I've looked it up.
Please do.
Have you?
I have not, but that's on my list of videos to do.
Do the people out there want a collaboration on this now?
Ooh.
Oh shoot! Oh shoot!
That's my way of saying you do all the work and I'll just make jokes and yeah.
Or how about you talk about airborne ones or whatever, like this missile, and I'll talk about in space nuclear propulsion.
Well, there you go.
All right. Well,
see what just happened, people? That's how YouTube does.
That's how we do it. All right. So speaking of propulsion, I don't know.
Sure.
The bar is low today.
Yeah.
The bar is it's been getting lower and lower each episode, I feel like, anyway. So Dream Chaser. You guys remember Dream Chaser?
Yes.
Yeah.
I was totally clear on this when we were talking about it.
Yeah, that thing.
So I have pulled up spaceflightnow.com. They have an article about finally Sierra Nevada Corporation, by the way, not Sierra Nevada, the beer company. They chose their ride to space. And it's the Vulcan rocket. ULA's Vulcan rocket. And so Vulcan, remember, is kind of the immediate replacement to the Atlas V, but it will also replace Delta IV and Delta IV Heavy eventually even. I mean, it can be about as capable as a Delta IV Heavy. It's a very powerful rocket. The rocket itself uses liquid methane. They're running on 2 BE4 engines. Those are the BE4 engines that Blue Origin, Blue Origin will use 7 of those BE4 engines for their New Glenn rocket. This is only going to be 2 for their core stage. But then the Sierra Nevada with the Dream Chaser will have 4 strap-on solid rocket boosters eventually. And then it also has a Centaur upper stage. And this is really good. And so, by the way, Seth once mentioned in our Discord that yes, that Delta IV Heavy will be used for a long time. Tori mentioned that to him actually in a social, just at a really recent mission. But I mean, yeah, it'll be used for a long time, quote unquote. But I think that this Vulcan could eventually phase that out, or it's planned to phase it out eventually. But so the idea here is this is going to be what's going to take up the second round of commercial crew, the main phase of second round commercial contracts. So right now, to get up to the International Space Station, cargo-wise, you have SpaceX with their Dragon capsule, and you have the Cygnus capsule from Northrop Grumman, and is that who it is now? Northrop Grumman? Yeah, it used to be Orbital. But so the cool thing is this is now going to be a third option that NASA purchased, and this is a little baby space plane. I think we've talked about it a little bit on the show, but it's a really cool concept. It can land on like any runway, so it has a ton of flexibility. You don't have to land it on this 5-kilometer long runway in Florida or 2 other options. You can land this at like literally any commercial airport. It's really small, lightweight, and it's just a cool vehicle. It can hold, I think, over Where is the amount that it can store? It can take up like 10,000 kilograms or something to the International Space Station. So it has a really large amount of payload capability. There we go. Sorry, not 10,000 pounds, or 12,000 pounds, 5,500 kilograms to the International Space Station, which is awesome. So it's just really cool to see a third vehicle flying. One that looks like a little baby space shuttle is always exciting. And that's going to be happening by 2021. And this is all kind of hinging on the Vulcan rocket being ready, which is, kind of been a thing that we've been waiting for a while. And the Vulcan rocket is mostly needing to be ready. The exciting news here too is that it was supposed to fly. They had 2 flights already purchased for an Atlas rocket, but ULA actually was like, hey, guess what? We actually will be able to fly you guys on Vulcan now. And that's kind of part of the fun news, is that Vulcan will be ready by the time this thing's ready to start fulfilling contracts. And it sounds like, based on news, that the ULA is pretty far along with Vulcan and on schedule for a 2021 launch. And the BE-4 is performing nicely. It just seems like everything's finally kind of getting on pace here.
And this is not, so this is ULA, not NASA, right?
It's 3 organizations really for the missions that we're talking about, because it's NASA missions. They're NASA resupply missions for the International Space Station. The Dream Chaser is made by Sierra Nevada Corporation, and the launch provider is United Launch Alliance.
That's what I was thinking. The Vulcan rocket is what I was thinking of.
Oh, yeah. The Vulcan rocket is United Launch Alliance. Yep.
Now, do they do any reusable, recoverable things?
So I talked about it a little bit. I just put out a long video last Saturday about Rocket Lab's reusability plans, and I actually showed the trajectories here. I'll pull this up on my website because it's actually pretty fascinating. This is quite shocking that this is the way this works. Look at this chart that I made.
I like charts.
You do like charts. You hopefully will like this. And I animated this, and it was very pretty.
Yeah, I did see this.
Yeah, so this is these are the first stages of different vehicles or boosters. So the green line that I'm showing, sorry if you're listening, I will try to describe it. The green line is the space shuttles, SRBs, the solid rocket boosters from a space shuttle. And they only went up so they separated at only like 40 kilometers from the vehicle, and then they coasted up to 65, because when they separate, it's still going up. So it's not like they separate from the vehicle and immediately fall back down. It's just that, they separate. They're done accelerating, but they're still going to coast up to their high point. Mm-hmm. So the Space Shuttle SRBs went 65 kilometers at their highest point, and they ended up about just under 300 kilometers downrange. The Falcon 9 booster will go about 120 kilometers in altitude, go 620 kilometers downrange. The Electron's around there too, around 170 kilometers in altitude, and it'll go 620 kilometers downrange too. The Vulcan booster is like insane. It burns for so long. It burns almost to orbit. It gets up to 20,000 kilometers an hour. So that's 2/3, a little over 2/3 orbital velocity. And it ends up going over 3,600 miles downrange. And they're hoping to detach the engines from it and swoop it out of the sky with a parachute.
Yeah.
Like this.
Just the engines.
Just the engines.
So they drop the fuselage or whatever.
Yep, exactly. They drop the tanks. Yep, that's exactly right.
Wow.
Yeah, there you go.
That's so 3,500.
So many different ways of doing it.
Kilometer. I mean, and where do they launch from? From Florida?
Yep, from Kennedy Space Center. They could also launch. They will be launching Vulcan eventually out of Vandenberg and stuff like that too. Sorry, my screen is very shaky.
Yeah. So where does that take you?
That gets you, I think that gets you pretty darn close to like Europe or Africa, depending on where you're going.
That's what I'm wondering. Like how far away is, like I'm trying to look on Google Maps right now. And so this is the not polar orbit, right?
Correct. This would be like a pretty standard, launch from Florida, depending,
What's the other kind of orbit? There's polar and...
Well, there's a million. There's polar, there's equatorial, equatorial, and not necessarily equatorial, but just high inclination orbits. There's east, like if you fly out of Kennedy Space Center, like a 27-degree inclination minimum. So yeah, I don't know.
Somewhere around there. Yeah, I'm just looking at it because I don't know about Africa. I guess Yeah, it probably would get you close over to there, huh?
How far east? Do a measure distance thing from
How do you do that?
Kennedy Space Center. Right click on and say measure distance.
Click on the map.
And move that point. There you go. Find us 3,600 kilometers.
How many miles is that?
Go straight east. You won't ever fly south like that. There you go. That 3,600 kilometers would be about 2,000.
About 2,000?
Yeah.
Kilometers. You got it on miles right now.
Yeah, how do you switch it to kilometers? I don't know.
No, it says down there at the bottom,
There we
but
go.
you're probably looking at the miles.
Oh, total distance is 3,900 miles. So 64. Okay, so it's a lot shorter than that. Go ahead and shrink that baby down. Oops. Keep going. Oh, you have like multiple points or something.
Okay, there it is. 3,500 kilometers. I see it now.
Okay, so it's halfway through the Atlantic Ocean. That's pretty nuts.
Yeah, you're pretty deep.
Wow.
That's amazing, though, that it's going to go that far.
So there's a cruise ship out there with a helicopter on it, just like right in the middle of the ocean, just kind of hanging out.
Yeah, I mean, that's what it'll be. That'll literally be what it has to be, because then the helicopter can't fly like very far, carrying really heavy engines and big parachutes and stuff, you know? So the ship will have to be nearby.
Dang.
Yeah.
And then, so
crazy,
where does the Falcon? Well, the Falcon 9's like land like 600 kilometers or something out, or
yeah, like 1,200. I think is its furthest one.
1,200 kilometers
Was the center core of
Falcon Heavy,
Falcon
right?
Heavy.
Yeah. So
Yeah,
you're around there. Jeez, yeah, you're not even. Man, that is nuts.
Yeah, but the normal one for SpaceX is around 600 these days.
Yeah.
Downrange.
So I mean, it's just insane. I love being able to look at it here on Google. I guess this is Google Maps, but man,
pretty cool.
Yeah.
Well, real quick, I had two more things that I needed just to talk about quick. And one of them, speaking of ships in the ocean, we had a lot of how are they going to recover the second fairing with SpaceX? And literally, I don't know if we even talked about this. I think it was like Saturday night. My friend Space Coast Stephen Marr had pictures. The 10th. What was that? That was Saturday, I think. Had pictures of the new Go Mischief is the name of this ship. The other one's Go Mistree. Was spotted coming into port, and this is the second fairing catching boat. So they will have two fairing catching boats, one for each half. So now that they're nailing it, 2 in a row now with fairing catching. Now they'll have another ship. They'll go out. Each ship will catch each fairing half, and they'll come back with the full thing every time.
It's going to be cool when they catch both of them.
Yes. So imagine a mission, a Falcon Heavy mission, where they recover all 3 boosters, and they recover both fairing halves, and the only thing they threw away was the upper stage. That's going to be amazing. That's
insane.
That's crazy. And that's for not even a Starship. Now, I mean, Starship will just be so bonkers, but the fact that they're getting this far with a more traditional system is incredible.
Sounds like we need a Spaceonomics video explaining that.
They're just so plucky with all that type of stuff. I love it. And then last thing, speaking of Starship, I wanted to talk about this quick, which is sad because I won't go and see it today like I was planning to. But look at this. Starhopper down in Boca Chica got some new additions. These are pictures from, this is from Mary at Boca Chica Gal on Twitter. And she got some awesome pictures of, see these little black things here? Let me zoom in. Watch this. Enhance.
Looks like a little clover.
Yeah, we're seeing the metallic or ceramic heat shielding or whatever it is. Maybe it's a mixture because Elon has tweeted showing testing metallic heat shields. Just recently they said it was going to be ceramic tiles. I mean, who knows these days what these things actually are made out of? They might be that turf rock or however you say it, an in-house solution. But they actually mounted a couple of them onto Starhopper, which of course Starhopper will never it's not even going to go above 200 meters ever. So Starhopper will never experience any kind of reheating, but it's assumed that they're probably mounting it to there just to see what it's like, when will these things hold up when they're bolted on there in cryogenic temperatures? What about under vibration? What about, with loud noises? How will they hold up? And so just getting some real world data on this solution. And I wanted to point out something too, that notice that, so the idea, one of the biggest criticisms of the space shuttle was that it had like 24,000 individual tiles. And those tiles were like different shapes. They're really fragile. They had to be carefully inspected and replaced all the time with this glue that, like, if it went through rain, it would have fallen apart. You know, like the space shuttle would come back like naked. Like they were very temperamental, very bespoke. Every tile was bespoke. The idea here with a vehicle like Starship and Starhopper, well, we'll say Starships, forget Starhopper, but is that you can have a more uniform tile for almost the entire windward surface. You know, because it's just a can. It's just a uniform shape. So they can cover one whole surface of it with literally the exact same shape, and maybe, you know, just like the tiling on your floor. The tiles on a floor, you don't have 24,000 unique tiles. Each one's the same shape or same type of tile. And then you might have to cut it for some corners or, you know, trim it around for a couple unique areas. It's not a huge deal though. And I think that's more of what's going to be able to be possible here with Starship, is they can put this ceramic tiling really easily, like in just massive quantities, cover the majority of the windward surface in these tiles, and have them be, you know, easily replicated and produced, mass produced, as SpaceX loves to mass produce things. They can just be, you know, put on there easily. It's not, you know, we heard one time that they're just planning to bolt these things on there instead of this like fragile glue. They can do things differently this way and not fall to the same problems that, you know, that the space shuttle had. And then not to mention, this might only be for some sections would have this. Other sections might still potentially use that transpiration, you know, water cooling where it sweats out methane to cool surfaces. We just don't really know at this point, and I'm hoping, you know, there might still just be multiple options on the table in a very SpaceX fashion, just like, hey, we're just going to put a bunch of stuff out there and hope that one of them works out, basically. And there might be different solutions for different sections of Starship. There might be, you know, who knows at this point. But it's just cool to see. We find that's the closest and the best we've seen of that. And don't forget, just the other day, too, on CRS, was it 17 or
18?
18? Yeah, sure. CRS 18, they actually had some of those little bit of ceramic tile like that actually mounted to the Dragon capsule, and they're going to see how it handles re-entry, a real-life re-entry, you know? It's one thing to do it in a lab and try to replicate heat. It's another thing to actually go through re-entry, and so they're going to have some really good data when CRS 18 comes back home.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's awesome, man.
Isn't there supposed to be an update on Starship toward the end of this month?
We've been hearing the 24th.
Yeah.
Which would be, you know, 9 days from today, a week from Saturday, supposedly down in Brownsville area. So now that I'm not going straight to Brownsville, I guess I'm going to go home maybe for the weekend. I don't know. And then come back down, and then hopefully, but the good thing is then that would line up closer with the announcement. I was planning to probably be gone for over a week anyway, because I was going to, if the hop happened tomorrow, what was I going to do? You know, like sit around for I was going to probably just sit around for 8 days, you know? But now, since I only drove 1 day out of the way instead of 4 days out of the way.
You do need to rent a place down there, I think, is what it comes down to.
I know. I probably just need to get an Airbnb, like, that I will own or something, then rent it out when I'm not there or something.
Yeah. That'd be kind of fun.
Yeah.
Little space destination.
Space. Yeah.
A space.
Exactly.
Space.
Now,
yeah. Well, what are you guys working? Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Well, I was going to ask. So, this was Starhopper.
Yes.
And you were talking about the tiles for Starshipper.
Yep.
And,
Starship, yeah.
And that was delayed or something? What was recently delayed from the FAA?
Oh, this actual hop. That's why I'm not going down right now.
That's okay. Yeah.
This hopper is supposed to hop, you know, about 200 meters, and it was supposed to happen tomorrow for me, or today if you guys are listening to this. You know, like when it's posted, it's supposed to be happening today, and it just simply is not doing that. And yeah, so that got delayed because the FAA for some reason is not licensing it, and yeah, I have no idea. So I'm going to turn around and go home basically while I'm only 12 hours from home.
I'll call the head of the FAA. We'll get it turned around. Okay, just sit tight.
Thank you. No, it sounds like Elon's literally been talking to the FAA, like personally, trying to get this thing licensed. I don't get why wouldn't they? Why can they deny someone a license unless they like did something? I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, at this point, it's probably just, hey, Jeff is on vacation, so when he gets back, he'll fill out the paperwork for you. He'll click the button on the website or something.
Damn it, Jeff.
Just frustrating.
It's always Jeff.
Government agency, just you never know. You never know what the holdup is.
It's true. What are you guys working on though?
Joe?
I always answer first, but I don't have to. Monday, I'm doing a video. I'm kind of doubling down on a previous video that I did about how difficult the trip to Mars is going to be. And I'm going to focus specifically on what it will do to the human body and whether or not technically you could really even survive a trip to Mars. I'm gonna make a lot of fans out of it, I can tell already.
Well, I kind of wonder so would prep for going to Mars be being really physically fit by Earth standards, or sitting around and eating pizza and becoming completely sedentary because, the gravity on Mars is so much lower, so you'd be used to just, not moving and not using your body as much.
Well, it kind of doesn't matter because it's going to take, anywhere from 6 to 8 months in space just to get over there. Like one of the points that I make in the video, and I'm not spoiling too much here, but the shortest possible flight there and back from Mars is 7 months longer than the longest any human has ever been in space.
What percentage longer is that?
1/3.
So 30% longer?
Sure. Numbers.
33%.
It's numbers longer.
Yeah, but don't forget the some of the big things, and maybe we want to talk about this in your video, is some of the big things about being in low Earth orbit or being in 0G is like the bones and stuff like that. Some of those problems. But once you're standing and walking around on Mars, you'll be there for a majority of the time, so you get a break in the middle. As opposed to when Scott what's
Kelly.
his name?
Scott Kelly.
Yeah, Scott Kelly. Sorry, yeah. I was thinking of Scott Manley, and I'm like, wait, no. Yeah, with Scott Kelly, for a full year, basically, they didn't get a break to stand ever and get, experience weight on their joints and their bones and stuff. So at least with this, you're floating around for, like you said, around 6 months, and then you get to stand around for a year, and then you get to, float again for 6 months, and you can also curb radiation and stuff like that, on Mars. So it's not quite the same as just hanging out in low Earth orbit for 2 years.
Well, I talk about all that, so.
Okay, good.
Yeah.
Good. Just wanted to make sure.
I mean, I paint a pretty dire picture, and I know I'm going to get a lot of hate for it, but it's not meant to be negative. It's just meant to be realistic about what we're going up against here,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some serious challenges.
It is not for the faint of heart at all, right? That's pretty intense.
Well, and also consider all those long-term flights in the ISS. They had resupply missions all the time. You wouldn't have any resupply on Mars at all. It's all on you.
Yeah.
Trying to see if I can show you what I'm working on.
Ooh, it's gonna be sexy, I'll bet.
Charts.
No.
I like
be
charts.
sexy or be sexier.
Okay.
Yeah, semi-sexier.
So
Ben's showing off
his
house is charging.
So I got my power walls.
Woohoo!
That's so cool.
Yeah, this bit right here, this visualization they have in the app. So that's next week. I'm going to be talking all about power walls, whether or not it makes sense for you financially. Most people, the answer is no. And then what the process was like, what the app is like, what the options are, et cetera, what it means actually for the grid. Because one of the funny things is, depending on how you set it up, if you actually got home batteries and had solar and disconnected from the grid, you would be hurting the grid, which seems crazy. But anyways, there's so much to it. I just wanted to show off this little visualization. The app the Tesla app, which you use for your car, also has when you have power walls and stuff. This visualization where it shows you where the energy is coming from and where it's going to. So if you're just listening, I'm showing this visualization here. It shows my solar panels generating 4.1 kilowatts. 3.4 of that are going back to the grid. And then, 0.5 kilowatts are going to my house to power, whatever's going on. And occasionally it fills back up the power wall because I think it was already at 100%. So it's just kind of, hovering.
It kind of drips in.
But it's super cool. I'm super geeked on it. Literally I spent about 2 days reverse engineering the Tesla API to figure out how to get that data, because I'm like, in the app, you could only see today's energy usage and yesterday. That was it. And I'm like, this sucks. Like, I want to know for the past month, for the past week, like, what's going on? Like, I want to see some trends here. And I get to and so I actually reverse engineered the API, built this whole script and thing to go pull the data. Literally the next day, they released in the app the ability to look at history and download your data. I'm like, great. Perfect. Cool.
Classic.
Thanks.
Fine. Whatever. Yeah,
Classic.
So anyways, so that's what next week's video is all about. It's just about the Powerwall and everything. And I don't know if people really care, but if you ever want to know, to be like refer back to it 2 years later. You want to know about Powerwall? Yeah, go. I covered everything. So
I really would like to get one someday, and solar panels.
What's your average? You're in Dallas. So short answer is if your average price of electricity is over 14 cents per kilowatt hour, which I don't believe yours is, Joe, then it financially makes sense to get a Powerwall. However, if you have solar, it basically never does financially. There are other reasons and other use cases that I talk about in the video, but money-wise, for most people, it doesn't actually make sense.
But
interesting.
Let's be honest, it's cool.
That's what I'm saying.
It looks awesome. And I mean, just to help alleviate some of the, grid power would be nice.
There are reasons.
Nice thing to do.
There are reasons. Yeah.
What
about you?
Well, I'm working on, I'm finishing up my Aerospike video, hopefully. I guess I have like a full week to get working on that soon now. So we've talked about that for the past couple of weeks. This is another one of those like almost Raptor video rabbit holes where I had to just learn way too much. So I'm on page 12 of scripting. For reference, the Raptor video I think was like 17 pages of script. So this is getting, and I'm not even close to done. This is probably going to be a 35, 40, 45 minute long video again.
I think YouTube likes those.
It's true.
I mean, your Raptor video did pretty well.
Yeah. It definitely taught me that not to be shy about that. Yeah.
That's my biggest problem writing scripts is the rabbit holes. I'm just constantly finding, this is interesting. Do I include this? Do I not? But I have to know. And next thing you know, you spent the whole day trying to figure out some little thing that has nothing to do with anything. But
that's what I love.
That's what the old saying, like, art is the act of destruction. Meaning, like, I don't know about you guys, like my Powerwall video, I shot it. It was like 40 plus minutes of me talking. And then without a ton of mess ups. And so I trimmed it down to everything that wasn't like a retake or a mess up. And then so it's just like, okay, now I have like the actual content. Now I just keep kind of whittling it down. It's like you start with 40 minutes of footage and you get down to like 15 minutes in the end.
Right.
Yep.
Kill your babies.
Yeah. Casey Neistat. That's what Casey says. Okay. You got to kill your baby. Because it's like the video.
That's an old screenwriting term. So.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's where you got it from.
I've almost found that like my audience and the content that I create, it seems like make as many babies as you can because people like those tangents. It's as long as they're relevant and you learn something and they're like a fun takeaway. I find that that's what my audience tends to like, or those comparisons and those weird like, while I was researching this, I happened to stumble upon this, this is cool. And I just talk about it,
Yeah.
But maybe it's a little different these days.
I feel like there's, the way I structure mine is I actually start out with kind of the story arc. Where's it going from and where should it end? And then I explore my way through that. And all those tangents are great, but sometimes they're like this isn't helping you go from the start to the end. So that's where I cut those out, you know?
Right. Yeah.
Personally.
I may have had maybe a few of those on the Rocket Lab reusability video. Ended up being 27 minutes long. But I learned so much already just doing that one, just random little things. I'm like, this is cool. This one's cool. That's neat, you know?
Yeah.
So
it's hard to shut that off.
Yeah, exactly. Well, maybe we'll shut this off. We'll see you.
Oh, we'll see you
In
our
ludicrous future. Hey, thanks so much for listening. If you like what we do and you want to kind of help get it out there, you can give us a nice review on any of your podcast streaming platforms, whichever one you use. That kind of helps get it out there. Also, we do have a Patreon set up, so you can join us there at patreon.com/ourludicrousfuture. You can get your name in the credits, meet a whole other group of like-minded people. It's a lot of fun. We do appreciate it. We'll see you there. Thanks.